Mr. Rokita.
Consent, Congressman.
Thank the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Elmendorf, thanks for coming again. I always appreciate it. Always very instructive. Picking up on where my colleague left off, contrary to her assumption or assertion, I want people, and my party wants people, to live the best possible lives and build it for themselves that they can, whether or not they vote for us. I mean, that's what America has always been about. I am for young people having their first job. I am for women actively being part of the workforce. We are for all that. We are not saying no, but we're just saying there's a better way. So in light of that, as you're completing your study, can you tell me if you're going to contemplate any alternatives to the meat-handed approach of just raising the federal minimum wage across all sectors? I mean, are you going to look at the effects of an earned income tax credit? Are you going to look at the effects of maybe a subsidy in terms of a payroll tax deduction on the employee side of things or anything like that?
Congressman, this report will focus on the effects of raising the minimum wage. We will note that other approaches have been discussed in the past as alternative ways of boosting the after-tax income of low-income people. And as you know, CBO's done analysis of some of those alternatives in the past.
Yeah, thank you. So I just came from an Education Workforce Committee hearing where we were talking about early childhood education, and that hearing, combined with remarks that I've heard so far, then reminded me of the President's State of the Union address, where he, again, demanded across-the-board federal minimum wage as if there wouldn't be any effects to that, like humans being replaced by machines or a decline in employment by businesses. And I'm thinking about the hearing and thinking about in his speech in the same time that he was calling for a Head Start increase, which is an early childhood education program. So if the federal minimum wage that he's calling for applied to programs that he's also calling for, like Head Start, that would increase it seems to me, the administrative costs of Head Start programs, thereby reducing the number of slots for kids who deserve and need programs like Head Start.
I see your point, Congressman. We would not
analyze
that carefully. Yeah. We'll tell you all that we think we've been able to figure out in the time we've been working on this problem.
Are you going to pick particular programs as examples of your analysis?
We're not quite finished, and I'd rather not be specific about exactly what we're doing. But we will try to talk about we do intend to talk about how these change the minimum wage would interact with with parts of the government budget. But exactly what we will say, how specific we will be about certain things, we have not. Right. We're just not done yet.
So, because I was in the other hearing, I didn't hear the beginning of your testimony or your questions. But did you discuss at all in any depth the MyRA program?
No, that issue was not.
So let me go down that road a bit. The President recently proposed in the same speech, quote, MyRA, unquote, program, which would allow all Americans who qualify to invest in a U.S. debt instrument similar to what is available to federal employees through our thrift savings plan.
Right.
It's called the G Fund. Now, the G Fund is a fund available to federal employees. It's non-marketable, and the best way I can describe it is that it provides a subsidized interest rate over the long term for what is really a short-term security. If we apply something similar or the G Fund product to the entire American population or some subset of it, wouldn't that increase our borrowing costs as a government?
Congressman, I don't know. We don't, as a matter of course, analyze the effects of particular administrative actions, because as you know, our role is to provide analysis of legislation that Congress is considering. However, we do follow administrative actions because we need to understand them when we are updating our baseline. So if this particular change is one that we conclude ultimately would have important effects on the budget, then you will see that come through in our next baseline projection. But I don't know at this point if we've really had any time to stop and look at that.
Thank you. And then just generally in the 20 seconds I have remaining, talking about this deficit versus debt, I hope we all understand the difference between deficit and debt by this point. I mean, the debt is not going down, right? The debt is increasing.
Right.
Right. Is it better to encourage people to work in order to reduce the deficit, or to encourage people not to work in order to reduce the government's deficit.
Well, if the encouragement could be done at no cost to the budget itself, then, let me rephrase a bit, the more people who work, all else equal, the larger our output and income and the larger tax revenue and the smaller the deficit.
Thank you.